Blunt Cuts is a podcast fueled by creativity, curiosity, and empowerment.
We cut through the daily mess of life. This is unfiltered honesty.
Park your passive at the door. This is Blunt Cuts. Welcome to Blunt Cuts. I'm CJ, and please welcome to the studio, Amy Seeman. Amy is a self-proclaimed grown-ass woman with little control over her shopping addiction, bladder, or the two tiny humans she birthed. I know Amy as a talented stylist in the Twin Cities and style icon. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here and for the very kind words.
You are just an incredible human, and I am so glad you reached out and that you wanted to come on the show. So we are glad to have you. Today is a little bit of a heavy day. You know, we are going to talk a lot about personal experiences, and Amy is here being vulnerable, and just a warning to everyone that this is real shit, and it's stuff we have to talk about as women. So let's get into it. I would love to hear why you want to be on today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. You know, when the Me Too movement started catching fire 2 years ago, and the media would tell like the most horrific stories of sexual harassment, I just felt heartbroken for these women. I felt sad at the magnitude. I felt angry at how long the perpetrators had gotten away with it, and just rage at the lack of humanity when I would start reading some of the comments, questioning these women's truths. Why are they coming forward now?
Yeah, I think that was a lot of what I felt too. Like, what are, like, why now? And why are they being so questioned and persecuted on like their truth?
Yes. So much of that just at my core ate at me. And let me tell you why it takes months or years to speak up, because our greatest fear is that we will not be believed. And that is exactly what happened to me. It took me 6 months and on the verge of a breakdown. I was having night sweats, insomnia, fatigue. I was so tired. And I couldn't figure out why I was so tired all the time. I had migraines. I would go to work and I would feel like I was going to just crawl out of my skin. I would be so anxious. And then I finally had the courage to come forward about what had happened to me. And let me tell you, there is not a playbook for how to navigate sexual harassment. And that is why so much of why I'm ready to tell my story and to help other women, because there is a lot of gray area. It's not black and white, and you have to mentally sort through that. And in the end, it will almost always come down to a he said, she said game. You know, I think that there's this fine line between what is unlawful and what is unacceptable behavior, and we allow men to toe that line when we make excuses for them or when we try to convince ourselves that it's not that bad. I remember I would say things to myself like, well, he undressed me with his eyes, but he didn't physically touch me. And the skirt I was wearing was really loud that day, so it was hard not to acknowledge it. I told my boss, and he didn't seem concerned or alarmed enough to report it, so maybe I'm making too big of a deal of this. And I have really thick skin, so I should just be able to brush this off. Those are the lies.
I think those are those lies, those common pieces. And, you know, to add on to that, you know, unfortunately, I have some alignment with you here, and so many women do, and it's that idea of, oh, he's a great family man, he's so likable. Those are the things that I told myself or went through, or you know, what am I doing that it's just me? Why am I a magnet for this? What am I putting out there that is getting this energy? Like, it's not happening to other people in this office, or that I thought
that you know of,
that I knew of. Nobody's talking about it. It's just me. So what am I doing wrong?
Yes, and we are quick to blame ourselves first, that we are somehow at fault, and we are not. Yeah, we are not. You know, when I finally did come forward to HR, I had a timeline dating back 5 years in that department of just clear examples of ineffective leadership, gender biases, sexual harassment, and just it was a culture of indifference, and it created just an offensive and intolerable working environment. For me, it wasn't just this one isolated incident. It was every little thing that I had let compound year after year after year until I felt so stuck. We stay stuck for far too long. And I don't know. And I ask myself sometimes, was it the hope that things would get better or the fear of the unknown that kept me? But something kept me for far too long, and life is too short to stay stuck. When I did come forward, we went through a grueling 4 to 5 week investigation. And in the end, the senior VP of HR said to me, if it happened the way you described, it absolutely is sexual harassment, but there was not enough evidence to substantiate your claims. My greatest fear.
Oh, that just makes me so angry.
My greatest fear was realized. I wasn't believed. And that stays with me. I replay that in my head over and over. It's been over a year. It's been a year and a half since I left, and I still replay that. If it happened the way you described, it absolutely is sexual harassment, but there was not enough evidence to substantiate your claims. They offered to move me to a different department. They said, because I had asked for a severance package when I had come forward as part of constructive discharge, and they said, we don't want you to leave. We don't want to pay you to leave. We can take your current role. We can move it to a different department. We can create a new role for you in a different department. We can have that done within 2 weeks. And I said, how do you come back from this? And they go, well, what do you mean? In terms of working for the VP again? I said, in terms of working for the organization again, I have no faith in you to do the right thing. And one of the questions I had asked them throughout the whole process is, if you're saying there is not enough evidence, what evidence is needed? And that was a question they could never answer for me. And I said, so if you can't even tell me how to protect myself should this happen to me again, why would I stay?
Right.
Why would I say? I am drawing a line in the sand of what I will and will not accept at that point. And I left. And I left without a business plan, without a roadmap for what I was going to do next. All I knew was that staying was no longer an option. And I had to go. I remember I'm a woman of faith, and I remember the day that I came forward and first brought my timeline to HR. That night I came home, and I fell to my knees at the side of my bed, and I just cried out to God, and I said, Lord, whatever your plan is for my life, I am ready. I am ready to listen, and I am ready to follow. And I say that because, as I mentioned, there is no playbook for this, but I will tell you my gut instinct guided me the whole way. And I didn't ask for a specific outcome. I didn't say, please give me the severance package. I just said, I'm ready. Whatever it is, I'm ready. And I think one thing that I struggled with for so long is, I didn't get the outcome that I had expected or I had hoped for. And I'm not someone that necessarily believes that everything happens for a reason. And so I really struggled with that for a while. But I just know that there were things that were left undone. And so part of that was there was a point where the initial investigation went for 2 weeks, and it was just run by employee relations. And in the end, we sat down and she started going over my work history, saying, oh, you've been in this department for 5 years. And in those 5 years, you've had 3 different roles that you've created for yourself. Your earning potential has gone from X to X. And then she pulled out this email that she'd found in my inbox that I had sent to the entire department. And it was at Thanksgiving. And I said, I'm so grateful for all of you who support my passions outside of these 4 walls. And the things that we love about this culture often get lost in the noise. And she read it to me and slid it across the table like her smoking gun and said, see, it can't be that bad. And I thought, and at that point,
how the fuck is that legal? How is that legal?
I know. And this is the person that you are told to go to when you have anything around discrimination, sexual harassment. You were told to go to employee relations. And instead of seeking to understand, she sought to poke holes in my story. And in that moment, and then they said, well, we have our HR generalist here, and she would like to take some notes on coaching, because we did talk to the VP about his comment. He said he would never look at you in a lewd manner or make any comment regarding, and in a sexual tone regarding your appearance. So HR is here. She would like to capture some themes so we can go back and coach. Are you ready to do that? I said, no, I am not ready. I am stunned. I am stunned. And I said, so are you telling me then my option is to stay in this circumstance or to leave? And she said, well, maybe you need to think about that. And I said, I will. And so at this point, my family and friends had told me, you know what, Amy, I think it's just time to go. Just go. You have been through so much already.
Mm-hmm.
You are physically.
Yeah, it was physical.
It was physical at this point. Mm-hmm.
Your
my husband was
is
very,
in
very
response.
concerned.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, just go. But I prayed about it. And I knew in the deepest part of my being that this was not done. This was not done. And I thought, well, this is why more women don't come forward, because this process is awful. And I thought, if I walk away now and this behavior continues and somebody else is impacted, then this would have been all for nothing. So at that was the point that it became greater than myself, became about everyone else. And so I dug deep and I went through the employee handbook and I found the escalation path. And I pulled out the employee values. I pulled out our definitions of sexual harassment. And I sent a letter to the senior VP of HR. And I said, I did not come forward with concerns of my career growth or earning potential. Therefore, this case is not closed. And I said, if we're saying this behavior is not unlawful, then are we saying it's acceptable? And I pointed to things from the handbook and he responded and reopened the case and brought in our corporate attorney at this point. And I had to go through it all over again. And there were many points along that way again where we would come to a place where I would just say, it just doesn't feel right. Something doesn't feel right. And so I would push back. And I would say, did you talk to the two female leaders who I text immediately after this incident happened saying, I am incredibly uncomfortable with what just happened? No, I don't think I see that in the notes anywhere. Who were those leaders again? So the first time they didn't even check. Reach out to the people who I said were the witnesses. Because here's the thing. When there is not a witness, or in my case, there wasn't a credible one, my male boss was standing outside of the office, the VP's office when it happened. And the VP spoke to my male boss. I was walking out of his office and I was wearing a pencil-length sequin skirt with opaque tights and booties and a knit sweater. I can remember it like it was yesterday. Office appropriate, but also brought my personality into what I wore, right? And I was walking out and I happened to look behind me for whatever reason. And he was undressing me with his eyes slowly the whole way up. And then he said to my male boss, that sure is some skirt she's wearing, isn't it? This is after he had already made that comment to my face before I came and sat into his office. So now it was continuing to happen when he didn't think that I was looking. That's not okay.
No,
it's not okay. So I had pulled my male boss aside right after he got out of the meeting. And I said, did you hear what he said? He goes, I didn't hear what he said. I heard him say something, but I didn't hear what he said. And I said, well, let me tell you what he said. And let me tell you how it made me feel. And he stood frozen because he does not like conflict and he is socially awkward. And he just stared at me and he said, I'm sorry. And I go, you're sorry? You're sorry? This is not okay. And I walked away. He never followed up with me the next day to see if I was okay. He never reported the incident. So when this came up 6 months later, when I finally decided and had the courage to go to HR myself, and they did check with him, and he said he could no longer recall the incident from 6 months earlier. So because he could no longer recall and the harasser had blanketly denied it, that was it. That was all the fact checking they did in that initial round. And so I had to use my gut to guide me to say, this is not okay. And when I needed to push back and I felt like something was unturned, I would push back, and every single time I would find another hole in the process. You are your only advocate at the end of the day.
Yeah, I'm speechless, and
it's fucked up.
I just feel for so many of you out there, women, and it's not fair.
Mm-mm.
It's not fair that you should have even had to enter an investigation when a claim is made that's harassing and completely against any policy.
Yeah.
And that you have to sit through and substantiate it and let time go by, which is exactly what they all wanted, was time to go by for you to just get over it.
Yep.
it's not that bad. You make a great salary, Amy. It's not that bad.
Oh, yeah.
You like the people you work with, Amy.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be any different anywhere else, are the words and things that I've heard my leaders say to me when I've spoke up.
Yeah. And it happens. And the more I've started talking about the more women that have come forward and said, me too. This happened to me too. It happens everywhere. And it is really, I don't even know if sad is the appropriate word. It's more than that. It's heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking. And I think as young women, you know, as I think of journeys and different ways and successes that have hit me along the road, you know, entering college and being a college freshman girl entering a campus. And what started there, I mean, I didn't experience a lot in high school. Maybe I was an ugly duckling. Maybe I was just had a lot of guy friends that like it wasn't sexualized.
Yeah.
But the moment I feel I entered a college campus, I immediately felt this feeling of to be a woman and grow and get an education and be stronger and enter this career path. I'm always going to be battling this. Are you here for me and what I have to say and what I want to do to grow XYZ? Or are you here? Am I here so you can look at me? And it started for me there.
Yeah.
That idea of fresh meat, this idea of women and how
my word.
We regard young women in our society. And as a mom of daughters, it's heartbreaking. Like you want change for them. So yeah, Me Too happened. Yeah, women are speaking up.
Yeah.
This isn't stopping.
Yeah.
You will be called out on the smallest thing that in your mind you think is not a big deal.
Yep.
There are varying ways we respond as women, but that doesn't mean that it's right or okay.
Right. Yeah. I think that part of why the bigger picture that I said I'd struggled with for a while to see the way that things unfolded. I have a voice in this community, and I've really learned over the last 2 years how to find that voice and how to use it. And I have a platform, and had I got the severance package, it would have been in exchange for my silence. And now I can sit here and say, my greater purpose is if I can help someone who is going through this now, or who has gone through it before and I've given them the courage to speak their truths, or God willing, there is somebody who finds himself in this situation down the road and they remember what I shared today and it helps them navigate it, then that is why I'm here. Because we have to do that.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for having me. Opening up. And I think if I can pass on any lesson, and fucking I'm still navigating my own journey, you know, in this space of what is right for someone, what is right for a man to say to me in the workplace, what is right for a man to say to me anywhere. Yeah. I'm still navigating that. What the fuck is right for like my dad to say to me? What is right for like my, you know, my brother, all the things. Yeah. And what do we say to the young women around us? And even to babies. I mean, I have a new baby. Like why do we always say like, oh, they're so cute? You know, like why do we start it there? Like why? And it's just, it's so systemic. Yes. And if there's one thing that I can just pass along to all of you women listening is your intuition is strong. Yep. And if it feels wrong, it's fucking wrong.
Yep. If it makes you uncomfortable, it is not okay, period. That's it. Period. You know, I've been thinking about, to your point there, of what is okay for men to say. And I don't think that men should comment on my appearance in the workplace. I don't need you to notice my new haircut, or that I look very pulled together today, or my bright sweater. If you want to lift me up, brother, you can start giving me credit for my ideas. You can compliment the way that I handled myself in a very difficult meeting or presentation, you can tell me, instead of calling me a bulldog and telling me that you mean that as a compliment, which I have gotten,
Yep.
you can tell me how much you admire my get it done mentality, my tenacity.
I've been called closer, which is fun. That's
Mm-hmm.
a fun. That's a fun fucking term. Dicks.
Right? You know what? It's like, don't tell me I have a nice smile. Tell me you appreciate the positive energy I bring to every interaction. There is a way to uplift women that does not have anything to do with their appearance. And I think in the workplace specifically, there is not a place for that.
Yeah, it's
and I think some of that starts at home. So, you know, you
So
said that
much
you have
so.
a mom of, you know, I'm a mom of boys. And I think that what is so important is for my sons to see my husband compliment me in related to the work that I'm doing, whether it's in the home or out of the home. Not just, doesn't mommy look pretty today? Or you look so nice today because I put on my lipstick.
Yeah, just because we have passions for fashion and style and outwardly we show our energy through what we're wearing and how we look, doesn't mean that we're doing it because we care how you comment about how we look.
Yes, we do it for us. We do it for ourselves.
Like, it's an external output of what's on the inside.
Yes. Yeah.
And
yeah. And don't get me wrong, I love it when my husband tells me I look beautiful today, but I like it when he compliments me on other things.
yeah.
You know, the work that I'm doing, the passion that I bring. So I think it's important that sons and daughters see the way that you interact with your significant other.
And I think it's so important for women leaders to listen. And I can't speak for being a male leader because I'm not a man, but I am a woman leader. And it's so important to hear. If someone comes to you, hear their truth. Do something about it.
Yeah.
And everyone is so goddamn concerned about themselves. And this is, you know, another systemic issue of our world and our cultures. But if we don't advocate, we shouldn't be managing. If we aren't there bringing forward and being that like bus to drive to like what's right, why are you managing people? If you aren't capable of being uncomfortable, making someone else uncomfortable for what is fucking right, then don't be a manager.
Yeah. I 100% agree with that. The one thing I will add, though, is I do want to be clear that not all male leaders are bad, right? Like one of my greatest mentors was a male. And ironically, when I came to him after I'd made my decision to leave and I told him what was happening, he said, Amy, I cannot believe you didn't come to me with this. I said, I know, but that's a really awkward conversation for a female to have with another male leader. And I said, and he goes, you know, I would have had your back. You know, I would have had your back. And I know he would have. But it is hard to have that conversation about how another man undressed you with his eyes and the sexual tone he used when he commented on your attire, and how when you would leave meetings with him, you would run to the bathroom to check that your blouse wasn't unbuttoned because he stared at your chest the entire time. That's really hard to tell your male mentor who you look up to and has coached you for the years, right? And so I think for men as leaders,
I think you're absolutely right. And yeah, I'm not man
Oh, I know you're not.
here.
I know you're not.
But, you know, occasionally that happens. But
I think it's
really
across
just
the board.
bringing
Leaders,
forward what's right.
Yes,
and
bringing forward what is right. If it makes you uncomfortable, it doesn't matter if it makes you uncomfortable. That's part of the job, just like you said.
And I have had so many women, and I think that this is our responsibility to other women. Like I had mentioned, we all have varying degrees of what we can tolerate and what bothers us to our cores. And that can really differ. And when that is hard. That's hard when like among other women.
Right.
And this HR person who is like, well, clearly I don't know how she got into HR when she lacked empathy or a common gift of...
It's a conversation for another day. That's an offline conversation.
A little analysis of her
And that's
job
the thing
fit,
too is, so I had to fight for unemployment. So after I left, I said, I'm going to ask that you don't contest. I'm going to file for unemployment. I'm going to ask that you don't contest it. And the senior VP of HR said, well, I can't promise anything, but what I will tell you is if you were to say something like, so I'm like, he's throwing me a bit of a bone. I'm going to take notes. And he said, if you were to say something like, An employee came forward out of good faith and inadvertently put you in a position where no reasonable human would want to return to those working conditions. That's something that would get approved. So that's verbatim what I put on the form. I got denied. So I filed an appeal. And I did not realize that appeal process was like an actual trial. It's a call with a judge, an unemployment judge, and the organization had representatives. And then there I was representing myself. And I get on the call and they say, do you have a lawyer present? And I thought, oh, fuck, am I supposed to have a lawyer present? Like, you know what I mean? I was like, I didn't know what I was walking into. There was 3 representatives from the organization, all 3 female. And the line of questioning and the way that they would skirt around things just made me realize it's not every female is going to be on your side in this process. What I will tell you is this judge, I want to just reach out and hug her through the phone. She asked the same questions I did. So if you're saying there's not enough evidence needed, or there's not enough evidence, what evidence is needed? Still could not answer that. And I think the employee relations kind of muttered something like, well, we're not saying she's lying. And the judge goes, but aren't you? Because you're saying you're choosing to believe him over her. So aren't you saying that she's lying? And about 2 weeks later, my husband woke me up in the morning and he said, have you checked the bank account? And I thought, oh no, I overdrafted. Like that was my first thought. Like, oh no.
Fuck, I was really
my shopping addiction
money.
Got the best. Right. Yeah. Cause I had a 6-figure job that I walked away from without knowing where money was going to come from next. And so I thought I overdrafted, and he goes, I think you just got unemployment because they backdate it to the day that you had applied. He's like, there's a lump sum of money in there. So I pull up my account, my notice of decision, and there it was right here. The findings of fact are based primarily on Seeman's testimony. Her testimony was credible because it was clear, detailed, confident, and reasonable in light of undisputed evidence. And I sobbed. And then she went on to royally slam them for the way that they navigated this, for how they could think that the solution was to move me away from the department where I'd built my career for the last 5 years. And you know what it meant to me? It was so much more than the money, because somebody in a position of power finally validated my truth. She believed me. Yeah. And I needed that more than I needed the money.
Well, I believe you.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for talking, speaking, and to all of you, listening. We hope that today brings light for you.
I think there were a couple important things that I wanted to share in that process, just in terms of how do you navigate this if you find yourself in it. The first thing we already touched on, if it makes you uncomfortable, it's not okay, period. It doesn't matter if your story, your circumstance seems small compared to what you hear in the media. It's very big to you, and it's not okay. Document everything. I can't stress this enough. Conversations you had, who it was with, where you were at, what time, what day. If you have a calendar, screenshot it and save that time along with the documented conversation. Tell someone you trust and have them document the conversation as well. You will need every bit of evidence you can surface. Yes. Being very mindful and aware of that. Yes, 100%. And then know when to walk away. Life is too short to stay stuck. And if something no longer fuels you, it challenges your morals, or makes you question your worth, it's time to walk away. And when you do so, hold your head up high and know you have not failed. I am so incredibly proud of the strength and courage and the professionalism that I displayed during all of this. And I can walk out there knowing that I did the very best that I could, and I did not fail. It's a dysfunctional organization. I am not the broken one. Allow yourself time to heal. So there's this grieving process that you go through that no one really talks about. You're going to feel sad. You're going to feel angry, but don't let it make you bitter. And I think that this is what surprised me the most, is the aftermath. It's actually the disbelief that stays with you longer than the act of harassment itself. I kind of envisioned like my last day as I thought about leaving to be one of those like Jerry Maguire moments, and then F you, you're cool, I'm out. And then you walk out and just feeling immediate sense of peace and freedom. The reality was I'd been working from home for the final 2 weeks because I did not want to have to pass my harasser in the hallway. my departure had been disguised as an exciting opportunity to go pursue my passions full time. So here I am sitting at home getting congratulatory emails, people wanting to hear more about what I'm going to be doing next. And I could barely find the motivation to get dressed most days and move my ideas forward. And then that turned into a lot of guilt because I felt like I was wasting this gift of time to rebuild. And then I felt shame for not being strong enough to just let it go. Those are real emotions, and you have to allow yourself to feel those emotions.
Feel them.
I had talked it to death with my friends and family to the point that I felt like this is above their pay grade. And I have my person, and she said to me one day, we will talk about this until you don't want to talk about it anymore. And I'm grateful that I have people like that, but I felt like I needed to see a therapist. So I did see a therapist. And one of the things that really stuck with me from that process is he said, lots of times people will say, well, there's good that came from that. He goes, there's no good that has come from this. This is a shitty situation. It's unfathomable. It's unfair. But the good has come from the actions you have taken. And I have to tell myself that. I have to remind myself of that. So don't be afraid to reach out and get help if you need it. There's no shame in that. Also tell your story. We are all connected by shared experiences. And when you have the courage to speak up, it gives someone else the courage to do the same. And it's also a really important part of that healing process is to tell your story. And then the last thing that I would leave you with is you need to forgive those who have wronged you. And this has by far been very difficult for me. I am most bitter and angry at my male boss who looked me in the eyes and lied to my face. And one of the things that surprised me too in that process is when the VP eventually, so after this notice of decision from the unemployment hearing was sent out, about 2 weeks later, the VP was fired. And I know that played a part in it. And then but I felt numb. Like I felt nothing when I heard that news. Like, well, that should have happened a long time ago, right? And then about 4 months later, I found out that my boss got promoted. That's when I lost it. That set me back. And I sobbed and I sobbed. And one of the ways that I was able to finally get to a point of forgiveness is I was listening to this podcast. It was on Oprah, her Super Soul Conversations. And one thing she said is, if someone comes to you and says, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hurt you, what does that do for you? It does nothing for you, right? But she said, I remember I was driving, listening to it, and she said, picture someone that has wronged you. And of course, there's my male boss's face. And he said, what if they come to you and they say, I am sorry. I have sinned against you. I made a conscious decision to protect myself over you. And my actions have set your course down a different path. I cried so hard I had to pull over to the side of the road. I couldn't even see to drive because that was it. That was it. And I know I will never get those words from him. That gave me that sense of peace and helped me to start to let go because that's exactly what it was. He chose to protect himself. And even though it set my life down a different course, I have finally gotten to a place knowing that I am exactly where I am meant to be in this moment.
You sure are.
So thank you for letting me share my truth.
Thank you. Keep sharing.
I will.
Keep sharing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you. This was wonderful.
And where can people find you?
Yes. So I show up on Instagram the most. You can follow me there at Mama, M-A-M-A, Seeman, Mama Seeman, S-E-E-M-A-N. And that will also link you in my bio to my blog. I rarely blog, but there are some really great parenting stories if you go back to the archives. And also my styling services are linked there as well.
Well, I absolutely love having you here. And thank you for making Blunt Cuts part of telling your story. Yes. But keep telling it. Yes. And those of you out there, keep telling your story. And we'd love to hear from you. You can find us at Blunt Cuts Podcast.